had no decent answer. So here it is. Today I'm covering 5 German flying aces of World War II. I should also point out that 103 Luftwaffe pilots were credited with more than 100 victories.
In the waning hours of World War II, an unlikely hero emerged from the skies above Korea. With just 9 combat missions under his belt and no confirmed slays,
pilot would have to have 5 enemy planes destroyed while in aerial combat during their career.
First Lieutenant Oscar Perdomo faced 5 enemy fighters and made every second count. What does it take to turn a quiet career into a legendary one in fewer minutes than most dogfights last? Imagine a heavily armed Thunderbolt slicing through the air at nearly 500 miles per hour, its guns blazing in perfect rhythm, turning enemy fighters into flaming wrecks. On one chaotic morning, against overwhelming odds and near-empty ammunition, Perdomo didn't just survive, he became an ace, forever earning his plane the name Meat Chopper. This is the story of how skill met destiny in the final moments of a brutal war. Into the final battle skies. August 13th, 1945, dawned with a silence that masked the violence soon to erupt miles above Korea. First Lieutenant Oscar Perdomo, 26 years old with 9 combat missions but no slays, climbed into his P-47 Thunderbolt, unaware that the next few minutes would etch his name into history. Over 50 Japanese aircraft had scrambled to intercept the 38 American Thunderbolts on a long-range escort mission, a battle that would unfold far from home, near a war everyone assumed would drag on, but which was actually hours from ending. Neither side yet knew that the atomic bombings had sealed the fate of the conflict. Perdomo's plane, christened Lil May's Meat Chopper, bore the caricature of his infant son, Kenneth, a playful yet fierce emblem painted on the nose. The mission required 8 hours in the air, stretching nearly 1,500 miles round trip, much over open ocean, where mechanical failure often meant death. The redesigned P-47 Thunderbolt was built for such daunting distances, carrying vast quantities of fuel, armed with 850 caliber machine guns and powered by a nearly 3,000 horsepower engine. But even such firepower counted for little if the enemy, the elusive Japanese fighters, could not be found.
Modified, rearmed and even re-engined to serve longer and against more opponents than its designers.
For weeks, the 57th Fighter Group had flown from their base on Ishima Island, northwest of Okinawa, chasing shadows. Their patrols had encountered little opposition as the Japanese hoarded aircraft in preparation for a defense against an expected invasion.
Of the 1,000 of American fighter pilots who flew combat missions during World War II,
pilots joked that the enemy had simply run out of planes. That changed in a flash when the radar blipped with numerous contacts, signaling a massive scramble of Japan's best remaining fighters, including Nakajima Ki, 84 Franks, and other veteran pilots desperate to challenge American air superiority before the war's inevitable close. As Perdomo banked sharply left, he spotted 5 enemy fighters breaking formation below and isolated the 3 trailing aircraft for attack, following the time-tested tactic of hitting the tail to sow confusion. At 2,000 yards, he surged forward, narrowing distance with deadly purpose. The tension was palpable. This brief window could change everything. Perdomo, quietly confident despite no prior slays, gripped the throttle as the war he'd known crescendoed into a violent crescendo over Korean skies. The stakes could not have been higher. Outnumbered, deep into enemy territory, and mere days before Japan would announce surrender. Yet the battle was real, smoke trails and spinning crafts testifying to the brutal nature of air combat in its twilight. Perdomo's moment of reckoning approached with every closing yard, setting the stage for a legendary transformation in less than 5 minutes. The name Meat Chopper was about to be earned through steel nerves and rapid fire. This day was more than a test of machinery. It was a crucible for a young pilot whose courage and skill would define him. The aircraft around him twisted and dove, smoke trailing from hits scored and planes spiraling earthward. Parachutes drifted silently in the distance, stories of survival or sacrifice unfolding beneath the raucous sky. For Perdomo, this was the day the quiet missions ended and history began. Transitioning from the tense build-up to combat, the tools of war that Perdomo wielded, the P-47 Thunderbolt and its formidable weaponry. weapons of the Pacific Thunderbolt. The P-47N Thunderbolt was no ordinary fighter. It was a Leviathan designed precisely for the vast distances and fierce combat of the Pacific theater. Modified extensively from earlier models, it featured wet wings, capable of holding 93 gallons of fuel in each wing root, and with external tanks, could carry over 200 gallons, enough to escort B-29 bombers all the way to Japan and back. This tremendous range transformed strategic bombing missions and allowed fighters like Perdomo to take the fight deep into enemy territory. Under its iconic checkered cowling sat a roaring 2,800 horsepower Pratt & Whitney radial engine, powering the 7-ton fighter to speeds exceeding 460 miles per hour. While heavier and less nimble than Japanese fighters, the Thunderbolt's durability was legendary. Its rugged design allowed it to absorb punishment that would have downed lighter planes, making it a flying tank with the firepower to match. Firepower was concentrated in 8 Browning .50 caliber machine guns, distributed equally across the wings, delivering a staggering 3,000 rounds of ammunition. When unleashed, this armament could devastate enemy aircraft with concentrated bursts. Each gun could fire at a rate that allowed pilots like Perdomo to spray enemy fighters with streams of tracer bullets, devastating airframes, and forcing quick, sometimes fatal responses. Despite its size and heavier weight, the Thunderbolt excelled in dive speed, able to accelerate rapidly to chase fleeing enemies or evade threats. While it could not outturn Japanese Ki-84 Franks or Zero fighters, it thrived in hit-and-run tactics, leveraging speed and firepower to attack from above and outside the enemy's blind spots. This interplay of strengths and weaknesses made the Thunderbolt a formidable adversary when flown with skill. The Lil May's meat chopper was no exception. Its nose art, featuring Perdomo's infant son dressed in a diaper and derby hat, puffing on a cigar, added a personal touch to a war machine, a reminder of what pilots fought to protect. This symbol of family and home contrasted sharply with the deadly efficiency of the aircraft, embodying the blend of humanity and warfare. The Thunderbolts of the 57th Fighter Group had extended their reach every day for 6 weeks, escorting bombers and attacking ground targets across the Pacific. Their missions had been challenging, but often met with little aerial resistance until this critical August engagement. The aircraft's combination of range, firepower, and toughness was vital to confronting the suddenly mobilized Japanese fighters. This fighter's design epitomized a shift in air combat strategy, endurance and brute force over agility and finesse. Perdomo's success would hinge not only on his flying skill, but on harnessing the Thunderbolt's raw power to turn encounters into decisive victories. The effectiveness of the meat chopper was about to be proven in rapid succession. The opening salvo of his attack would reveal how speed, firepower, and precision came together to make a feared hunter from a pilot once without a single kill. First, sleighs ignite the meat chopper. Perdomo's moment of truth came as he singled out the 3 trailing Japanese fighters from the enemy formation, following the classic tactic of attacking the rear to sow confusion before the leaders could react. He pushed the throttle forward, feeling the Thunderbolt surge under him as the distance closed from 2,000 to 800 yards. With calm precision, he centered his gun sight on the nearest Ki-84 Frank and unleashed a withering burst. The first fighter shuddered violently as bullets tore through the engine cowling and cockpit, black smoke billowing as it spiraled earthward. Without hesitation, Perdomo shifted his sights to the second aircraft, now his target. After weeks of tension but no sleighs, he found uncanny skill and focus in those split seconds, proving his mettle in the heat of combat. The Ki-84. Frank was Japan's premier fighter at the time, fast, well-armed, and capable of climbing with American aircraft. Known to Allied pilots as Gale, it had challenged US air superiority for months. The fact that Perdomo was able to bring down multiple Franks in moments underscored the deadly efficiency of his Thunderbolt and his growing prowess. The second Frank attempted to evade by breaking right, but against the diving Thunderbolt's unmatched speed and firepower, it was doomed. Bullets tore into its fuselage, bits of wing and tail breaking away before it erupted in flames and tumbled toward the earth. 2 sleighs in less than 1 minute transformed Perdomo from rookie to force. The third pilot, witnessing his comrades destroyed so swiftly, opted for survival and dove away eerily silent from the chaos. Perdomo made no chase. Pursuing a lone fleeing fighter risked losing sight of the larger battle. Around him, the sky was confusion incarnate. 37 other American pilots tangled with more than 50 Japanese aircraft amidst twisting smoke trails and diving planes. With adrenaline pumping, Perdomo climbed, searching for familiar silhouettes amid the chaos, cautiously scanning for his squadron mates and checking ammunition. The long mission clock ticked relentlessly as fuel burned at thrice the cruising rate. External tanks had been dropped before combat, leaving only internal reserves for the harrowing return flight of nearly 4 hours across the East China Sea. Unexpectedly, he spotted 2 biplane trainers flying in close formation below, Yokosuka K-5Y Willows, relics of an earlier era and hopelessly outmatched. Despite their obsolescence, they bore Japanese markings and were legitimate targets. Perdomo wasted no time, diving with tremendous speed and dispatching one with a brief deadly burst. The other vanished into clouds, evading destruction. The opening strikes set the stage for a legend forged in minutes, one that would mark Perdomo as a lethal presence among the sky's last desperate battles. The ambush and turning the tables. As Perdomo climbed above the clouds, searching for friendly aircraft, he found instead a deadly surprise waiting. 4 Nakajima Ki-84 Franks held the altitude advantage, patiently positioned to ambush any pursuer. Their dark silhouettes emerged from the sun's glare, growing larger and faster as they dove like wolves on the hunt. Perdomo had mere seconds to react, knowing every decision could mean life or death, not just for him, but for the sun whose face graced his plane's nose. Rather than flee, Perdomo made a bold and counterintuitive choice. He turned into the attack. The Japanese pilots expected him to brake or dive away, but instead, the Thunderbolt surged nose high, bleeding speed and climbing toward them. For a brief moment, all 4 enemy pilots struggled to adjust their aim as Perdomo rolled his plane inverted and pulled hard, reversing direction. The pursuers overshot on their diving runs, passing beneath and behind exactly as he had planned. This sudden shift in the sky turned the hunters into the hunted. Perdomo focused on the trailing fighter, opening fire with bursts of .50 caliber tracer rounds. The Ki-84 pilot never saw the tracers coming. The air was suddenly thick with fire and death. Bullets tore through the enemy aircraft's engine cowling.
By the end of the Second World War, the Thunderbolt was responsible for the destruction of over 7,000 enemy aeroplanes.
Flames erupting into a fiery ball as the fighter disintegrated in mid-air. That 4th sleigh cemented Perdomo's status as an ace in mere minutes. The remaining 3 Japanese fighters scrambled for safety, one diving toward the deck, another climbing toward cloud cover, and the third attempting a desperate return pass. Perdomo, low on ammunition and aware of the growing chaos around him, ignored the fleeing foes and sought out his squadron instead. Below, thick smoke columns rose from at least a dozen crash sites, punctuating the battle's deadly toll. As the smoke swirled against a churning sky, Perdomo spotted a pair of familiar P-47Ns, their distinctive paddle blade propellers catching sunlight. He banked toward them, hopeful for reinforcement, but his eyes caught a familiar threat, a single Ki-84 tightly locked onto the tail of one Thunderbolt, refusing to break its deadly grip. The lone American pilot zigzagged desperately, trying to shake his pursuer, but the Japanese fighter matched every evasive move with calculated persistence. The second P-47N wingman tried to help, but poor angles left him unable to get a clear shot without risking friendly fire. Perdomo knew the situation demanded immediate action. With barely seconds of ammunition remaining, he pushed the throttle to maximum and dove in from above and behind, repeating the attack profile that had already brought him 4 sleighs. The intensity of the moment compressed time. The Ki-84 pilot, fully focused on his prey ahead, never noticed Perdomo closing in at more than 400 miles per hour from an unexpected angle. The concentrated .50 caliber fire ripped into the enemy fighter's fuselage, sparks flying as smoke billowed from the damaged engine. Then abruptly, the Thunderbolt's guns fell silent. All 8 barrels had run dry simultaneously. The roar of battle was replaced by tense stillness. Out of ammo and alone, Perdomo faced the ultimate test: how to survive an armed enemy fighter while his own guns lay silent. Empty guns and deadly bluff. With 0 rounds of ammunition, Perdomo was now 7,500 miles from home, alone in hostile skies, and facing a heavily damaged but still dangerous P-47 pilot determined to finish him off. Conventional combat wisdom demanded retreat. Use superior speed, dive for cover, and try to escape. Yet Perdomo refused to run. Instead, he turned his powerless Thunderbolt directly at the enemy, nose to nose, braving a combined closing speed approaching 800 miles per hour. This maneuver was a violation of every principle of aerial combat. An unarmed aircraft charging an armed enemy seemed madness, but Perdomo understood a critical fact his opponent did not. The Japanese pilot could see no tracer fire, had no way of knowing the Thunderbolt's guns were empty. All he perceived was a lone, aggressive fighter coming headlong with resolve and no hesitation. They played aerial chicken, the deadliest game in the sky. The P-47 pilot flinched first, breaking right and aborting his attack run. Perdomo followed aggressively, maintaining the illusion of offense. Each turn and counter-turn forced the enemy to react defensively, buying precious seconds. Through radio, he called for help, a plea for rescue carried by a channel buzzing with tension. Somewhere amid the chaos, a second P-47N pilot answered.
The P-47 wasn't without its flaws. It was quite slow in a climb and had pretty slow and sluggish acceleration.
Emerging suddenly from the clouds, the wingman sized up the combat geometry perfectly. The P-84, focused solely on the bluffing Thunderbolt, never spotted the new threat diving from above. The coordinated burst of concentrated .50 caliber rounds tore the enemy fighter apart, sending wings, engine and fuselage tumbling earthward in a blazing inferno. Perdomo's daring gamble and relentless willpower prevailed against impossible odds, earning him 5 slays in a single day and a place among fewer than 50 US pilots to achieve ace-in-a-day status during the entire war. He had become the last American pilot to do so in World War II, a testament to courage, skill, and the lethal efficiency of his meat chopper. Though the credits for the final slay went officially to his wingman, Perdomo's initial attack, pursuit, and willingness to engage an armed enemy with empty guns made the victory possible. Without his unyielding presence, that damaged Ki-84 could have destroyed a fellow Thunderbolt and escaped destruction. His teamwork and tenacity added a vital dimension to the fight. Yet even after 6 minutes of tumultuous combat, Perdomo's resolve did not waver, nor did his Thunderbolt's legendary toughness. Aftermath and enduring legacy. After the chaos of that fierce morning over Korea, the 57th Fighter Group regrouped to assess what had become one of the most decisive air battles in the Pacific War's final month. The tally was staggering. 20 Japanese aircraft destroyed with 0 American losses. Perdomo's 5 slays stood as a remarkable feat, marking him as an ace in a day, a rare and distinguished achievement. His performance shifted the narrative for a pilot who had flown 9 missions without a single kill. The official confirmation came only after intelligence officers painstakingly reviewed his gun camera footage. Frame by frame, the film validated his rapid, lethal strikes against 4 Ki-84 Franks and a biplane trainer that had inexplicably flown into the deadly melee. The final slay involved collaboration, with another pilot's guns delivering the fatal burst. But credit went to Perdomo for initiating and sustaining the engagement. It was a team effort, yet his unwavering resolve had made victory possible. Though his combat exploits occurred just days before Japan's surrender, Perdomo's impact resonated far beyond that gamble in the sky.
But was fantastically fast in a dive and could absorb an incredible amount of punishment from enemy aeroplanes.
His actions symbolized the resilience and skill of American airmen pushing the limits of machine and nerve. The meat chopper nickname became a legend, immortalized not just in military reports, but in the hearts of those who flew alongside him. His story was a living testament to endurance, precision, and humanity amid the war's devastation. Recognition followed swiftly. Perdomo was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, the second highest Army honor for valor, praised for his extraordinary heroism. Oak leaf clusters and a Presidential Unit citation for the entire 57th Fighter Group adorned his record, reflecting both personal and collective sacrifice. Yet behind the medals lay a man shaped by loss and duty, the son of Mexican immigrants who had risen from humble beginnings in East Los Angeles to become one of the most decorated pilots of his time. In the years after the war, Perdomo's career continued with service in the newly independent United States Air Force. He adapted to jet technology and contributed as a mentor, passing on lessons forged in combat. Civilian life eventually called him back home to Los Angeles, where family and community became central. But beneath the quiet surface, memories of combat and loss persisted, intensified by tragedy when he lost his son Chris in combat during the Vietnam War. This personal grief deepened the legacy of a man who understood sacrifice on many levels. Today, Oscar Perdomo's legacy endures through preserved artifacts and remembrances. A P-47 Thunderbolt, painted to replicate Lil May's meat chopper, appears at air shows, inspiring new generations, and keeping alive the story of a pilot who changed history in 6 minutes of concentrated combat. His name is etched on the United States Air Force Memorial, and his personal papers rest in the San Diego Air and Space Museum archives, testaments to a life defined by skill, courage, and humanity. Oscar Perdomo's remarkable courage and skill turned a quiet airman into a historic ace in minutes, reshaping what was possible at the war's end. His story reminds us that heroism can emerge unexpectedly when courage meets opportunity. If this story moved you, please like, subscribe, and share to help keep these unforgettable moments alive.